Uh, Without taking much time, I'd like to introduce you all to Professor Bill. Professor Bill Schiano is a professor of computer information system at Bentley University. He has an AB in economics from Williams College and doctorate in information systems from Harvard Business School. He is a former director of Bentley's Masters of Science in Information Technology program. Professor Schiano has also taught at Aalto University, Finland, TIAS School for Business and Society, Norwegian Business School, Hult International Business School, and the Asian Institute of Management, and regularly facilitates faculty seminars on traditional classroom and online teaching for Harvard Business Publishing. Bill has been doing a great deal of work with Harvard Business Publishing, trying to help schools move online. You can see his work at harvard.edu. Also, he has led 2 of the webinars, Moving a Case Class Online and Adapting Quickly to Teaching Online, and authored several articles. So let me present you Professor Bill. You can have a virtual clap, or you can also clap, wherever you're sitting. Professor Bill, the floor is yours, and he is going to give us keynote on the potential to engage students online, even in the chaotic last-minute shift to online. Professor Bill, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. And if I could ask someone on the back end to give me permission to share my screen. Right now, I don't have privileges.
Yes, sir. I'll do that.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. And it's really an honor to be here, to have faculty, a group so large, coming together to spend time thinking about online teaching at a time when there's so many other pressures on us. So I feel an enormous responsibility now to make our brief time together useful. And what I tried to do was, for the first time in the last month or so that I've been doing this work, working with schools, and including Bentley, and Bentley's saga sounds very much like the one we just heard about, working with schools to try to move online, to think about, for the first time, what I've learned in doing that, in hearing from thousands of faculty from the webinars and also the faculty within Bentley. If you're not familiar with Bentley, we're a very large business school, about 4,000 undergraduates and about 1,000 grad students, but a small university. We only have a very tiny number of non-business students. And I teach very, very technical courses and managerial courses. So I teach computer programming, computer architecture, but I also teach project management, strategy, design. I teach to MBA students, executives, undergrads. I do it all by discussion. A case method generally, but if I don't have cases, then same idea of asking questions and interacting. It's been an enormous adjustment for me to be giving essentially lectures, these webinars and this brief talk I'll be giving with you today. So if you can have a little empathy for me as a discussion leader trying to just convey information by lecture, I would appreciate that. So just 4 lessons that I distilled it down to, of what I've taken from this time in working with schools, things that I wish we had known more clearly at the outset of this. And the first one is that it really does start with us as faculty. If we're not in the right frame of mind, if we're not thinking about this well, the chances of having a great, productive, engaging discussion go down dramatically. But there's very, very good news here. You already have nearly all of the skills you need to create tremendous learning experiences for your students online. And for those of you that have been teaching online for a few weeks, you have all of the skills that you need. And I'll talk a bit about how our traditional skills translate. But what I've seen is remarkable learning going on in a lot of online classrooms where the faculty are engaged and where they're using the skills that they have to help the students to learn, to structure that. I'm going to ask that you, at least during your day today in this, keep an open mind to that possibility, that it's not as dark a future in doing this online teaching as you think, that in fact, it can be great for the students at a time where they need it most, where engaging in a good learning experience is going to be something that's going to help them through a difficult time. So we've got even more value to offer here. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It has been a struggle. I loved the term that we heard, that we're failing and then we're learning from that. I've been doing this since what my students call way back in the last century. I started teaching online in the mid-1990s. I did that asynchronously on technology that predated the World Wide Web, using Usenet discussion groups and other things. I did it with very expensive, dedicated telepresence hardware, and then straight through all of the evolutions of the technology. I've worked with some of the best online teachers in the world. Stop any one of them after one of their online classes and ask them, did anything go wrong? Is there anything you do differently? And most of them will light up and say, oh yeah, that this went wrong, this went wrong. And these are people that do it all the time, where it's second nature. It's challenging, things fail. And the great news is that's okay. That one of the best things for me to come out of this experience and this shift to online is that we're seeing a letting go of perfectionism. I've got a photography backdrop here that makes it very neutral. No one cares if they're seeing your kitchen behind you. The standards, that the idea that it has to be professional, no one cares if there's a barking dog. It's fun if your cat jumps up on your shoulder. Now, as faculty, if that just isn't acceptable to you, that that's not how you want to be seen by your students, then put a neutral backdrop, get a bed sheet, lock the door to the room that you're teaching in, do whatever you can. But the idea that that's necessary is gone, it's done. At least in everyone that I've talked to, people just don't care anymore. And that's wonderful. It relieves a tremendous amount of pressure for us, because most faculty, in my experience, and I've been training faculty now intensively for almost a decade with Harvard Business Publishing. And one of the biggest challenges I see for all of us, myself included, is we like to be in control. And even more than that, we like to think that we're actually in control. And we're not. But boy, is it obvious when you're doing this online. Your technology has locked up. It's doing things that you weren't expecting. The students are using the technology in a way that you hadn't expected. That's going to happen. The more that you can accept that that's okay, and it doesn't have to be perfect, the more you can engage in the learning and focus on the things that are going to matter. And that's the exciting part. That's the valuable part. But we've got to be realistic. If you only have 3 hours a week for your classes, you can't be involved in everything they're doing asynchronously. You can't spend 4 hours trying out a new piece of software so that you're really ready to use it in this wonderful, expanded, fascinating new way. You got to pare down. You got to, if you have 20 hours a week, boy, can you have some fun doing some different and interesting things. But you don't have to do that. You can stick to the basics and you can do great work in a limited amount of time. Use the time where you're going to add the value, but be realistic about it. If we're not engaged, if you don't feel the passion for what you're doing, the chances that you're going to engage your students are almost nil. So finding your best self, whether that's getting a good night's sleep or the right cup of coffee or a run before class or just 2 minutes before class to breathe and not think about class, whatever's going to help you. But being in that state of mind where you want to be there and you remember why you're there. For me, it's always reminding myself why I do this job, that I'm arrogant enough to think that I can help students learn things and they'll be better off for it. And I want to do that. And the way I'm going to do that is by being engaged and showing that passion. Maybe for you, it's the way you choose your words. It's the things that you talk about. Maybe it's storytelling. Whatever that passion is, you've got to find that, and then it has to come through, whether it's on a synchronous class in a video conference or asynchronously in the way that you're typing things into the discussion or sending messages out. If we don't find that, we can't do this well. But it's about the students. At faculty, we like to think it's about us, and we're important. Students are more important. So keeping it focused on them. What are their constraints? Now, you might not know all of them, and you might not want to get into their personal life. If you do, that's fine. That can be very helpful for them. But if you're pointing them to other resources for that at the university, and then you're talking to them about what hours are you available to be online? What kind of technology do you have? Are you able to get somewhere where you can be on a video conference? If we don't know that, we can't frame the course up well. So we need to have that information. You have to communicate more. As much as you communicate in a regular course, I would say at least double it. We're all stressed out. When we're stressed out, neurological studies, psychological studies, our memories get worse. Our attention span drops. Make it clearer to them. Remind them about things in ways you might not ordinarily. These aren't ordinary times. Help them focus on what's important by communicating a lot more. Them missing a deadline, that doesn't help anybody. So remind them about the deadline. Make it easy for them. Their attention isn't going to be what it might be. We've been at this for a little over 8 minutes. I'm guessing some of you have checked your email. Some of you have checked messages. The distractions are inevitable. And they may be caring for a toddler. They may be cooking dinner. They may be trying to get the dog to stop barking. Life is in the way. That's okay. We've got to accept that. We're not going to get perfect attention. And just so you know, we don't get perfect attention in the traditional classroom. Let's not romanticize how great things were in the days before this happened. Inattention's always been a problem. You've always dealt with it. You're going to deal with it now. And that's okay. What's important to them? What's going to motivate them? I teach in a business school. It's all about business. Oh, you want to be a consultant? Guess what? You know how consulting work's getting done now? You know how it's going to get done forever now? Companies are starting to do this virtually. This is helpful. Anything I can do to motivate them, to try to get them to be engaged. And again, what's the goal? What do I want them to learn? Is what we're talking about here, is what I'm worrying about here really forwarding my learning goals? Or is it something I want because I want to be in control and I want things to be orderly and I want them to pay more attention? Keep it focused on what matters. And be creative in the way you call on them. Drawing students out by sending them a note the day before class, if it's a video conference. About 20 minutes in, I'm going to ask you about this. I'd really like you to give a good answer. Set those up so that you have some really great answers in the discussion. That's going to engage people. If it's an asynchronous course, use mail merge. Send them customized messages saying, didn't hear from you yesterday. Would really like to hear from you today. That'll get them going. You don't have to do all of the calling in front of everyone else in the class. And then can they help? Can you make them responsible for the asynchronous discussion? Can you make them responsible for topics in the discussion you're having in a video conference? It's student-driven. Let the students step up and do things. It'll also make them feel better about themselves and the course. I mentioned already that the skills you have are going to work. We just need to do more of it. Online makes you smaller. When I was trained in this originally as a consultant way back in the 90s, they brought in people that train newscasters, television presenters, and they taught us to exaggerate our facial motions because they're seeing you as a postage stamp. You've got to be bigger. So larger gestures, more attentive. Online, if you're asynchronous, they're going to be reading your words. Use the words better. Elevate them so that they'll hear the passion when they're reading it. Use your voice. Record things and put that out there. Make your presence known to the extent that you can. Check in more for understanding. You all know how to do that. Your teachers. Do it more frequently. Do it more thoroughly. Use polls. Use chat. Use quizzes. Anything you do in the normal classroom. But do more of it because they're not going to be paying as much attention. Read the room. Watch the video if you have video. If you don't have video, use those polls. Use that chat. Get the feedback. Try to learn what you can about how things are going. Check in more often. That's going to engage you better. It's the same skill. It's not as high bandwidth, right? In the classroom, you've got much more body language than I have seeing you. I'm on a 49-inch monitor. Your faces are relatively large. They're still smaller than if we were in person. But they're there if you have the video. If not, listen to the audio. Look at the response time. When I put up a poll, are they filling it out quickly? That might tell you a little bit about how much attention they're paying. You all know how to ask questions, whether you're a lecturer or a discussion leader. They got to be better. They have to be clearer. They have to be more concise. Otherwise, they're not going to hear it because they're not paying complete attention. Focus. What we don't want is you ask a question and the response is, what was he asking? I give up. I'm going to check my email. You want that good focused engagement? You've got to earn it. You've got to ask better questions. Instructions. If you're sending a breakout, you're going to have breakout groups today. If you don't give them good instructions and you've got a 10-minute breakout, first 5 minutes are, what are we supposed to be doing? That's the whole conversation. Crystal clear. If you can, give them a copy of it that they're going to see in the breakout room. Sadly, in Zoom, that's not easy to do, but try to find ways to make sure that the instructions are absolutely clear. Use groups more. And it's great to see that in a conference here, you're going to have breakout rooms. If you don't use them, try them out. I think you'll really be pleasantly surprised. It energizes things when you bring them back together in a video conference. In asynchronous, it gives them a chance to really feel engaged in an otherwise disengaged class. But if it's an asynchronous course, go back to your knowledge of the students. Is it fair to force them to do synchronous meetings in their groups if it's asynchronous? If you have people cut across time zones, you really going to make the person in the West wake up in the middle of the night to work with the 3 people that are in the East 10 hours difference? Maybe. I like to distinguish between inconvenient and unreasonable. I will inconvenience students to help them learn, but I draw the line at what's unreasonable. So you've got to decide, but you make that a conscious choice. But I'd encourage you really use more groups. I found that a huge benefit. And then the last piece, the biggest source of anxiety that I see, and I left it for last on purpose, because when I talk to faculty, they say, oh, the technology, I'm not a technical person. I'm never going to get this to work. How am I going to make this happen in my classroom? And the key piece here is don't let it get in the way. You want to focus on your pedagogy. That's what we want to drive it, not what the technology is capable of. So a few key points here that I think will really help. What is the bare minimum? So that survey of students, what's your connection speed? You know, what availability do you have? What kind of hardware do you have? Very different if somebody's doing your class on a phone than on a tablet, than on a laptop, than on a computer with a huge screen. So what's there? And then from that, what can I require? Once you know that, then you can start thinking about your choices. And one of the things I'm seeing that can be very effective, that in ordinary times might not be something you'd do. But again, these aren't ordinary times. Maybe if you have a third of your class that really can't get to video conferencing, you set something different up for them, that they're going to have an asynchronous experience and you're going to find ways to make that engaging. But then for other parts of the class, you're going to use the synchronous tools. Maybe you'll videotape it and record it in Zoom or your other tool and make that video available. It's not perfect. It's not an entirely equal experience in all respects, but it might be the best experience for all of the students that you can give them. Just something to consider. If you don't want to do that, if you feel that that's unfair or a violation of our contract with our students, completely understandable. But if that's the case, then can we do some creative hybrid work here? What can we do by controlling the individual setup? So really important that technically they understand how to turn off video, how to lower the quality of the video. A lot depends on the tool that you're using, but there are a lot of things, if you're on a slower connection, that you can do that'll let you still engage in the video conference. So make sure you're doing everything you can there, and then taking advantage of the asynchronous tools. So maybe you use some tools outside of Zoom, for instance. So we're going to have a Google Doc, and we're going to do a lot in that during class. And Google's a lot more efficient with bandwidth than Zoom is. So maybe they can have a really great experience in that Google document in what they're doing, and the experience in Zoom is not so great. Can we combine some things creatively? That can go a long way towards improving the experience when you have that lower bandwidth. And frankly, the audio conferences can still be great, but I'd keep them shorter. They're even more boring. They're even easier to be distracted. So if you do have to turn off everyone's video, they can't see you, or maybe they only see you. It's not the end of the world. You can still do some really nice stuff, but you don't want to try to do that for 2 or 3 hours. That's just not reasonable, and people aren't going to pay attention. So find ways to break it up if you can. If you're not a wizard on the tools, you're fine. The basic functionality, you've been teaching for a few weeks, you know everything you need to know about Zoom or WebEx or whatever tool you're using. If you want to get into the nuances, there's interesting stuff there. But send them to breakout rooms, know how to call on them, know how to lower their hands. The things you've figured out at this point, that set of tools with your skills as a teacher, you can make this class sing. You can make it engaging. Everything you need is there. You just need to use it. And things go wrong, you fail, no problem at all. Just let the students know that you're aware of it. They use FaceTime. They use Instagram. They know that the first take on that photo that they take of themselves is not the one that's going to get posted. They know you're doing this live. It's not perfect, but they want to know that you're trying, that you're working on it. So if you're struggling with something, tell them, oh, Zoom just did this to me. I'm going to try to correct it. Just give me a moment. They'll give you that moment. You don't have to be perfect here. make your setup work for you. Again, it doesn't have to be pretty, but it needs to be functional, that it is effective, that you're able to look into the camera. That camera is your eye contact. So can you get the laptop, if that's what you're using, at eye level so that you're easily able to look into that? Can you get a bigger monitor so you can see their faces more? Maybe it's your television set, if you have that. Anything you can do that's going to make it work for you, even if it's not particularly easy to do in terms of the configuration and it's not pretty. Doesn't matter. Does it work? Can they hear you? They know what you look like. Don't agonize over the video quality, but the voice does matter. Are you on microphone? Are they able to hear you? Are you speaking clearly? That matters a lot. I'm better standing. I have a standing desk. I got very lucky. I redid my office in December. So I've got this great setup with a new monitor and a new computer and everything I could ask for a home video setup. But if you don't have that, get a box that you've got in the delivery in, prop it up on that. I'm just more engaged when I'm standing. I feel like I'm in a classroom. Even if I'm teaching asynchronously, I still stand up because the way I'm asking questions, the way I'm answering students, I just find is fundamentally different than it is when I'm sitting down. I've got a level of engagement for myself that I don't feel when I'm sitting. It might work for you, it might not. Either way, you get to stretch your legs a little bit. This is tiring stuff. And learn from your mistakes. Again, that introduction, we fail and we learn. After class, just grab a pad or your phone and just take a quick note, type it out on the screen. What would I do differently? What do I want to learn? What do I want to remember for next time? Because again, we're probably not going to remember. There's a lot going on right now. So being able to do that. And then the very last thing about the technology, and maybe you haven't gotten to this yet, but boy, can it help. Use the analytics. If you want to know if people are paying attention, how often are they logging in? If you're teaching an asynchronous course, Zoom will give you reports. Most of the other video conferencing tools will give you reports and tell you when they logged in, what the responses were to polls. This is going to be helpful to you to know what the engagement's looking like. Playing back a little bit of the video to see how things were going. Anything you can do to measure it. I promised I would stay to 20 minutes. I'm just a few seconds over, so I'm going to stop there. But really, thank you so much for having me today. I'm going to pass the control back. I will unshare my screen. But I hope that was helpful. I'm sorry I can't join you for the rest of the day. It's getting to be 10 o'clock here in Boston, and it's been quite a long day on Zoom for me, but I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Bill. I don't know how did you manage, but you made us feel quite connected with you and your voice modulation, everything. Everyone is so much appreciating the way you are speaking, even online. So thank you very much, Professor Bill, for joining us.
No, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much, and please, best of luck, everyone. Be well. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bill.